All right, so today we're going to do a little video answering a question that was sent to me because this question comes up a lot, but I was doing a video on the Antelope Amari, how to use hardware with it, hook it up, stuff like that. This is for the Pure 2, and I'll open up the controller here, hopefully do this on screen so you can see it. But the question came to me, and this is a really big question. So, thanks to the question. I'm not gonna say your name because I don't know if you're gonna, you want me to say your name. But a gentleman was talking about having multiple pieces of equipment in his studio. So he's got a new compressor, a loop trotter, he's got mic pre-EQ, Clark Technic EQ, Paultec, art channel strip, and so forth, and then he has a Pure 2, which is a 2 in and 2 out. He also has a Mo2 that's a 16 in and out. So my suggestion to him is patch bay. They make a lot of patch bays. So the thing is in order to get the most flexibility out of your rack, number one, you can get a DB25 patch bay. I'm going to pull that up on screen here so you can see it. And let me do this real quick. So this is Sweetwater. Now this one's almost $1,000. You can get one from Behringer or something like that. But if you're into mastering, you want to get a really high-end patch bay. But the back of this is actually DB25, which once you make the commitment to do that, you're going to be very happy. So DB25 is it's used a lot in professional studios because you can carry 8 channels of audio on the one cable. You can go on to like eBay and other places and you can get guys that build these cables, because like a Megami DB25 is like a few $100s. So depending on your budget, what you're going to do then is you're going to take your inputs and outputs of your gear and you can set them up in the patch bay. So the outputs are on the top and then the inputs are on the bottom. That is the absolute most flexible way to use all that gear. Now, in a mastering situation, if you don't have much gear, I would recommend the Dangerous Liaison, I think it's called. Let's see if they even make the thing still. Yeah, there you go. So this is pretty much a digital patch bay. Device inserts, let me show you here. So that's what we're talking about here. So you can take multiple pieces and you can assign it to an individual input and output. Now, in the case of the guy that sent me the question, he has a Mo2 and then he has a Dangerous Pure 2. I mean, an Antelope Pure 2, forgive me. So this is what you need to do, okay? So the Pure 2 runs in USB, okay? So it can be a USB interface, but if you want to use it alongside all the other gear, let's say he wants to use his channel strips and all that stuff, he can literally just go out of the Mo2 into a channel strip and then out of that channel strip back into the Mo2 and create loops with his 16 IO. When you want to get a patch bay, I said in an earlier video, it's usually when you have more gear than you have inputs and outputs, but that's a little misleading. Sometimes you want to use your best converter for that signal path. So when we look at this Dangerous, we can actually assign all of our gear to the back of this. In, out, in, out, in, out. So these are buses, inserts and buses. So you have 5 inserts. So if you have 5 pieces of hardware in your studio, then you can actually hook them up into that. And this is a really quick way to be able to A/B back and forth. So I really like that. There's digital patch bays now that work by software. I think there's one from a gentleman. I want to give him a shout out. I don't know if they... Let me give him a shout out. It's called Digital Patch Bay. Yeah. So this is another patch bay. It's Flock Audio. I guess they do make it, or they have it. So this is really expensive though, guys. This one is a digital routing. So everything is done on DB25 again. And then you're going to route in and out. And I don't know how many inputs and outputs, but this is real. It's 32 points. So you have 32 in. That's 16 channels of audio with phantom power. So that means you have 8 stereo devices. So yeah, that's cool, but you can get in, like if you just want to get into patch bays, you really don't have to go all out on this. I'm saying you can get like a Behringer patch bay or something like that. But just to start understanding, or DBX patch bay, and we're talking $98. So, but this is really what you want to need. This is what you need if you want to make your studio flexible, because you could say, here's prime example of how a patch bay works. So let's say I have 16 channels of a converter here, and then below that I have 16 channels of converter. Now, beside that, so that's already your 16 in and 16 out. So most patch bays are 96 point, 48 point. So think of it in that way. So now let's say I have 16 outputs of my gear, 16 inputs of my gear. That is a denormaled patch bay. I don't want to get into all that, but that's where we have to sort of, when you read your manual and stuff, study that. Now you can take the outputs of whatever converter channel, run it into the inputs of whatever piece of gear you're using in that session, and then out of that piece of gear back into the converter channel. So your flexibility becomes a lot better. You're not just focused on, oh, well, I have to do this or I have to do that. Now, if you don't want to buy a patch bay, you can do pretty much what I've done in my studio. I wanted like a hardwired signal to the stuff I'm using. And then you can do it the old-fashioned way. But if you really want to be flexible, get a patch bay. That's the best way to do it. And if you don't want a patch bay, get that Dangerous device. That was a really cool device they made. Now, with all that being said, let me show you for his sake, on the converter, on the Pure 2. The Pure 2 runs like this, okay? So the Pure 2 is I mentioned something in the Amari video, but it is a 4 output. So this right here is what we're processing. So if I'm in a Pro Tools session, let me put my little face up there. So if I'm in a Pro Tools session, that is the window what I'm processing. So if I go out 1 and 2, that is automatically feeding to my out and in of my system. So if for example, we're using the Portico again, it would go out of the Portico. It would go out of the Pure 2 into the Portico master bus processor, out of the master bus back into the Pure 2. And then when I played audio through 1 and 2, it's automatically processing that. Now, where does that go? Okay, so this is how this thing works. So if you go to digital, my record source is AD. So whatever I tell this, that's what's being processed. So if I could make that USB 3 and 4, I can make that the digital input from another device. But whatever this window says, that is what the Pure 2 is processing. What's cool about the Pure 2, and why it's so awesome how they built this, is now I can use 3 and 4 as my monitor. So now I'm monitoring out 3 and 4, and that's hooked up to my monitors. And 1 and 2 is my signal path that's going to get processed back and forth. And that is like its own little digital patch bay. The other thing you can do if you don't want a patch bay, and I'm going to give a shout out to a lot of these bigger companies, like I just said with him with the Mo2, is you can get like an Orion or something, let's say. And let me see, or like let's say a Lynx, or let's just put on a converter, okay? Like this is the one that they're using up at the studio I'm at in Kent. My buddy Freddie has these, but like the new Lynx, okay? It's insanely expensive, okay? These are very expensive, but you could actually, just like he's doing with the Mo2, you can use this almost like a digital patch bay. I mean, you have so many line in and line outs that you can literally hook up all your gear to those line ins and line outs if you don't have enough. So just dedicate them to that, and then you're good to go. Why I said the Orion HD is he was talking that he has the Pure 2. Now, the Orion 32, I mean, that is like a digital patch bay. There's 32 in and 32 out, and then you have the best of both worlds. You have the converter channel, and you have the converter itself, and you have the patch point. So you're patching in and out, so you can use that like a digital patch bay. That's what I ended up doing, and then I scaled this down to what I really just was using for mastering and things like that. But to answer his question, you want to get the best converter you can get. Does it make more sense for you to go buy an Orion 32 or a Lynx or Aurora or another converter that has more inputs and outputs? The reason for the Pure 2 though, and the reason for the Amari we did in the video, is those are really high quality converters. So when I run through the Amari, I just get a lot better image. I get a lot better sound. And that's why I use that converter for what I do, because I want to print it at the highest possible quality I can. And the Amari allows me to do that. So let's look at this real quick. So yeah, in this case, you'd need a patch bay. So this is a demo deal on this thing, which is a pretty good deal actually. Oh, thanks, $200 gift card. So yeah, if you look at the back of that, that's only 2 in and 2 out. Okay, so what are we talking about here, guys? We're talking about 2 inputs, 2 outputs. You're going to need a patch bay. So if I had like 45 different pieces of mastering equipment, then I'm going to have to use that. Now, in a dedicated mastering room, you can get a mastering desk. So let me, actually, I'm on a good page to show you this, because I know they have mastering console. So the Dangerous shows up. Manly makes one. Some other companies make them. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Let me do this real quick, guys. Bear with me. I think Manly, yeah, it's called the Manly Backbone. That's what it's called. So here's another option. Yeah, they had one. See, I can't ever find this stuff. People are selling these things. But here's a classic mastering rig. This one allows routing as well, so you're going to be able to pick and choose between your gear, your source, and a lot of different options that are very, very geared towards audio. I mean, towards mastering. Very high-end signal path. The Dangerous Music Master with the Liaison is a really good one. So this is more like what we're talking about, a transfer console mastering processor, but this is really getting into some money. If you're on a budget, that's going to be hard to come by. So this one really has input left and right where you can move that. It has, I'm trying to see this, input monitor offset, stereo width, and then it has insert points. So this one actually has 3 insert points, but with the Liaison, that'd be an incredible mastering suite. And that is another way of doing it. So you have patch bays, you could just buy an individual converter with 32 in and 32 out, depending on your workflow. Most people go that route because they're doing mixing and summing. Then you have the input boxes like the Dangerous box or the Manly Backbone, which are dedicated switchers to print. And you can change gain and stuff. So that's a different thing, and that's a mastering desk. That really is. So today's world, if I had the best advice I could give, I would say start with a patch bay, learn patch bays, and see what you can do with that patch bay, and just, you know, see if you like what you're doing. Now, what I decided to do, and just to be absolutely 100% honest with you, is I got rid of my patch bay and planned on coming up soon, buying like a 32 channel converter and then just using that as the patch, and then dedicating my mastering gear along with like a Liaison or something like that to the actual master bus. So I work out of 2 different places right now that have all that routed like that. But yeah, for my mastering studio, I have like a really good mastering chain and I love it, and it's always proved itself. If you don't have any of that, experiment with, you know, just running things in and out of your converter. But you don't want to be like, if you have like preamps and channel strips and gear that's maybe not as good as the next gear, you don't want to be putting it in chains. So to answer his last question, yes, it does diminish. Like if you have a really awesome master bus processor and then I feed that into like something that isn't that good, like just a product that, like, you know, was like a $50 compressor and it doesn't have the electronics, it will diminish that sound, absolutely. So you want to be able to pick and choose. In his case, I would route, let me go back to his question. Let me go back to his question real quick and go through the gear list. Let's see if I can find the question. Okay, here's the video. So, yeah, the mic pre, I would leave that out. You know, you could use the Pultec, but he's got one, so that you need two for mastering. The Art Voice channel strip, he could use. Yeah, you can't use that in mastering because that's just one. So the loop trotter, yeah, you could use that. The Daking or whatever that company, the VCA, they make great stuff. You could use that and hook that directly to your Pure 2 as a signal, and then use everything else like your Pultec, your channel strip, your yeah, use those on the Mo 2 in and out on one of those dedicated inputs and outputs. That's how I would do it. And one last thing I want to show you before I get out of here. So SSL came out with one that a lot of people know. It's called the Fusion. And I want to show you what's cool about this. So I believe that the back of this. So this is like the future of mastering, by the way, guys. The SSL Fusion is like a bus. So I would put that like on the Pure 2 in his case, like out and in of the Pure 2. And then that could be your main piece, you know. And then I believe it has a mid side, and you can actually use those mono pieces. That's why I wanted to bring this up. So I'd have to double check with SSL, but the really cool thing that I saw with this is you can actually use the SSL Fusion, and you can set the stereo image so you could use a mono channel strip like his pre, and then you could use that just on the mid or just on the sides, because then the mid becomes left, the side becomes right. I believe that's the way it works. I'm gonna have to double check with SSL, but yeah, if you can have like like something like that as your main bus, I would rather use something like that. Then that has insert points, okay? So you can use it in context with that. So yeah, I hope that gave you a little bit of a rundown and you're not totally madly, absolutely confused, but this isn't like beginner stuff. Like when you start routing things, I would say first and foremost, understand signal flow, understand patchbays, but if you don't need patchbays, maybe a converter. And that would be my main suggestion. Get another converter, which he has this converter. So route those to different inputs and outputs on the converter. Put your stereo stuff on your 2 bus through the Pure 2 out and in, and you should have a good setup. So my name's Doug Jenkins. I just wanted to answer that question, and hopefully I did, and hopefully that helps him out. So, and hopefully that helps somebody else out. And we'll get into some more routing. That can become difficult depending on your system. I do my best to try to answer every question, but sometimes I miss them. So if I missed your question out there, you know, I apologize. But you guys have a Merry Christmas. I got my lights up in here, and looking forward to the next video. Peace! All right, we're going to turn this off.